Thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple questions.
Followed by
The
Senator
first
Braun.
is-
Sorry to interrupt, just to let Mike know that he's next.
The first is sort of an extension of a topic that Senator Murray was talking about earlier in terms of equity of the Social Security system. My understanding is that even with Social Security, there are more than 5 million seniors in the United States currently living in poverty. Roughly 1 in 7 seniors rely on Social Security for more than 90% of their income. And the number of Americans who are at risk of not being able to maintain their standard of living in old age or retirement age has increased over the past 30 years. And this is particularly true for lower income and marginalized communities that have had fewer opportunities to save, earn pensions, et cetera, especially among Black and Latino elder adults. Question is for Ms. Romig. How does rising income and wealth inequality affect Social Security financing and benefits, and what recommendations would you have to make the system more equitable?
That's a terrific question. Certainly on the financing side, as we've been talking about, this rising inequality of the last 40 years, since the last time Congress addressed Social Security, was not anticipated. And so we are getting fewer payroll taxes from high-income earners than we would have if the payroll tax cap was set at the same level that it had been 40 years ago. And so we've lost a lot of revenue for the system during that period of the last 40 years, and that's certainly not equitable. And as Amy discussed, also this rise of people getting income from other sources that are not taxed by Social Security, investment income and pass-through income and things like that, the highest income people are contributing a much smaller share of their total incomes to Social Security than regular folks who get their income from paychecks. And so those are really important factors that we need to think about now that we are aware of these trends to make sure that Social Security is equitably financed. And the same is true on the benefit side. The increase in longevity over the past 40 years since we last addressed Social Security has meant that wealthier people are living significantly longer. That's not true for the bottom half. And in fact, the reverse is true for some marginalized groups. We hear about these deaths of despair, especially in marginalized communities where life expectancy is actually shorter than for their parents or grandparents. So that means they're getting benefits for a shorter amount of time, whereas wealthier folks are getting benefits for more years. And so we need to address that as well.
Yeah, that's a troubling dynamic. But on the first half of your answer, fair to take away that tax breaks for the most wealthy and large corporations are not good for Social Security?
That's right.
Thank you. Second area is the following. Now, since 2010, the number of Social Security beneficiaries has increased by 21%. And this is sort of the precursor to your longevity dynamic that you just described. Our nation's age dependency ratio is now projected to reach 44% by 2040. Absent congressional action, an aging population and a shrinking workforce will continue to threaten Social Security financing. That's a dynamic that I think most of us are very well aware of and are concerned about. Now, while not a solution in isolation, right, this is not a magic wand, but we know, history tells us that higher levels of immigration can improve the long-term financial health of the system. Immigrants, on average, are younger than the native-born population and have higher labor force participation rates. And just to top that, by the way, the studies by the Cato Institute from 2013 and 2018 also found that Social Security eligible immigrants use benefits at lower rates. So there's a group of folks that's paying into the system disproportionately than what they're taking out of it. Questions for Mr. Swagel and Mr. Goss. We already know that immigration benefits the economy overall. But can you speak specifically to how updating our immigration system could support the long-term solvency of the Social Security system?
Maybe I'll say a quick word and Steve can finish. No, it's absolutely right that more immigration would reverse aging and would reverse the shrinking of the workforce that you talked about. That would have a near-term impact in improving the finances of Social Security. There'd be long-term benefits as well, long-term impacts as well. There'd be higher productivity growth from immigrants, and immigrants start companies, they hire workers, that means more payrolls and more revenues into the system. And we would analyze both those, the near-term and the long-term impacts.
So from a purely demographic point of view, our issue, as we've mentioned, has been the changing age distribution because of the drop on the birth rates after 1965. Now, birth rates are when people enter our population at age 0. Immigrants enter our population generally between 20 and 35. So that if we have an increase in immigration, if our policy were to change, that would bring more people into our population precisely at the ages at which people begin to really enter the workforce and work. So it could potentially change our distribution of the 20 to 64 age group, working age, versus the 65 and over, and have a very positive effect. There's no question about that. And in addition, immigrants tend, by and large, at least in the early years in the country, to have higher birth rates even than the general population. So it's really a plus all the way around.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just in closing, want to underscore, at a time where we're seeing persistent record low unemployment levels, we're not talking about immigrants coming here to take jobs from anybody else. We need the workforce, and I've heard that from leaders in every industry across the board. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Talk to a hospital or a nursing home. Senator Braun.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Something I hear